Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for a very kind introduction, and thank you, Mr. Tandon, for your excellent talk, which has made my job very easy. Mr. Tandon was just explaining. I don't have any slides. I'm just going to share some thoughts, and I hope that you find them relevant to the context of what we are doing or commemorating today. And let me, at the outset, take the liberty of saying that whatever I'm going to say today is dedicated to all the great work that people, in IIT Kanpur, the startups in IIT Kanpur, and people outside of IIT Kanpur and startups outside of Kanpur have done to rejuvenate the defense ecosystem in the country, so that today we are actually looking at truly Atmanirbharta in defense. And why I say this, I had the privilege of being Defense Secretary for over 3.5 years, and as Defense Secretary you control the overall capital procurement of the country. And not too many people know this, that in the last 3.5 years, and in fact thereafter also, I am now retired for 6 months, we have not procured any big item from anywhere in the world. None during my time and nothing thereafter. So we are nearly 4 years now. Whatever we import is purely to keep sustenance, as Mr. Tandon was saying. Once you buy it, you are logged in with that equipment, and you have to continue buying spares, services, and they milk you every time you go for even a small part of that equipment. So I think some tremendous work has happened over the last 3-4 years, and it's actually amazing that our country, which we have doubted for 75 years and have we became the world's largest importer of defense equipment. Something we couldn't be very proud of though. But today we have reached a situation where we have stopped import, and hopefully this will continue. But so this is my story. How did we move from being the world's largest importer to zero import in the last 4 years? Mr. Tandon mentioned to you, we were, interestingly, if I look back in 2018, we were still producing a whole lot of defense equipment. We had 9 big defense public sector undertakings, 2 of which figured in the world's top 100 defense organizations of the world. We had made over 1,000 ships in this country. As Mr. Tandon said, we made Marut in 1961, though it was not original design, it was licensed production. But nevertheless, we made 61. If you start licensed production 61, you could not be flying imported aeroplanes in 2021. But that was the irony. On one side, we had domestic industry of the size of 80,000 crores, which by sheer size, we could possibly one of the larger defense industries in the world, and we were the largest importer. Why? Because all this defense production was largely based on transfer of technology. And the problems of transfer of technology have been so beautifully elucidated. I will give you one story, and this is my favorite story because I had to deal with it. OFB used to make T-72, and OFB also made T-90. T-72 tanks were made by Russia in 70s, and T-90 tanks were made by Russia in 90. And I joined Defense Ministry in 2017. Because these were such good machines, they were two T-72 tanks. We still have thousands of T-72 and T-90 tanks. But in 2018, when we wanted to buy more or make more T-90 tanks, Russia gave us a very hefty, and I don't want to talk of sums because they run into hundreds to thousands of crores, royalty or license cost for making more T-90. Look at the irony. 50 years we have been making these tanks. And if you ask a lot of people, OFB will also tell you 80% of the tank is so-called indigenized. then why can't you make the tank? For two reasons. One is those 20% we still don't know how to make. Second is even that 80% which we can make is under license, so that if you want to make more than the number of units for which you have license, you still have to take his permission. So what is the point of indigenization of those goods? And the third thing is that when you were making this in India, it would cost you at least 20%, and if you are stuck, up to 50% more than what is the cost of the same product if you were to import it. So you can take your choice. You want to make it in India, make it, but you will have to pay 30 to 40% more, or you can import it, it will be cheaper to you to that extent. All the time when we were making items, we were paying premium on all those items. There is another other disadvantages. Mr. Tandon mentioned it. I just want to make it more clear. So in this arms world, trade world, there are no friends and there are no enemies. Friends and enemies only happen in the political world. When you buy a technology or an equipment, either licensed or imported, your enemy will also can easily buy the same thing. And this is not a hypothetical argument. We think our best missile system is S-400. We are paid through the nose to buy it. China has got it, we all know is one of the security threats that we have to encounter, we have to tackle with. So when you are importing something in this world of arms trade, there is every possibility that your adversary can also buy this if he so wants, and therefore there is no surprise element. In any defense operation, if something matters, it is the surprise. If you have your own technology, you have this great surprise element with you, because the enemy doesn't know, the adversary doesn't know what you have, and that is where you can do things in a different manner. So this is what we had, but we had, why did, I mean, if you look at it and what has changed, let's try to understand, to be able to see what has changed in 2018 to 2023. If we look at the past, somehow we chose to go for a 100% public sector model for development of our defense industry ecosystem. Our defense PSUs, our OFB, our DRDO, everything was 100%, and till a long time even academia was not very much part of it. We said DRDO, defense is secret, can't let anyone know about it, so can't tell even IIT Kanpur what we are doing. And no question of telling private industry. It will be blasphemy, sacrilege if you were to tell them. But when we were importing from private companies of other countries, no problem. Our country, no, don't tell IIT. That was the ironical, paradoxical situation that we were living in. And every time we thought we will develop our own thing, you set up requirements which were so ambitious that even, because you say, look, this is already available in the world, I need this. Until you can show it to me and prove it to me that you have this, I still have to go with the lower thing which is available in the world because it's already tried and tested. And this gave you the cycle of continuous import. So when I joined Defense Ministry, one of the questions, a standard refrain from all stakeholders used to be, ये तो इंडिया में नहीं हो सकता है, और स्टार्टअप से तो बिल्कुल नहीं हो सकता है, बड़ी बड़ी इंडस्ट्रीज भी आई हैं इसमें. Do you know when on paper, when did we open up defense industry, defense production to private industry? 2001. Between 2001 and 2017, what was the share of private industry into defense procurement? 1%. So there was this feeling, ये तो नहीं कर सकते हैं. You had the Tatas, you had the L&Ts, you had the Bharat Forges, you had Mahindras, you had all the big names who were into this, and you said they can't do it. I had, I had come to defense as an outsider, and I had no background of defense when I came. I came from a world of IT, and in that world things were very, very different. In that world, one had seen that was one sector which had really taken India skywards. And how had that happened? It was totally industry led. It was the first sector which in 1980s the government had opened up and allowed industry unfettered way to operate. Not that they had created great technology, but they had still created benchmarks in IT services which were the best in the world. You look at other industry. You look at the auto industry. Bajaj and Vespa. When we were kids, Vespa was the mainstay, the best scooter in the world, and Bajaj collaborated with it. What happened after some time? Bajaj said, "Yaar, mujhe Vespa nahi chahiye." And Bajaj is today the world's largest two-wheeler brand in the world. Look at Honda. Hero Honda bikes started with Honda collaboration, one of the top automobile companies in the world. After some time, Hero says, "मेरे को Honda नहीं चाहिए, मैं अपना Hero चलाऊंगा." Hero is the largest two-wheeler bike company in the world. Look at Suzuki. Maruti came here, Maruti Suzuki, as one of the lesser of the automobile companies in Japan. Honda, Toyota were way ahead. Suzuki was like a small bacha in front of them. And Maruti Suzuki created here was a very small part of Suzuki's own operation. So Suzuki was a small bacha of Toyota. Maruti was a small bacha of Toyotas and Hondas, and Maruti Suzuki was an even smaller bacha. After some time, Maruti Suzuki, or the Indian operations of Suzuki, are actually the biggest operations they have anywhere in the world, and the reason why their stock market in Japan went up higher than any other automobile company. Where is the difference? I mean, all these stories that we are talking about, what do we see a common feature? I was instrumental in creating the electronics manufacturing policy. We had 2 mobile factories in the world. Today we are the second largest mobile manufacturer in the world. Who's done it? It's been the private sector. And here in defense, we have actually said we will not provide freedom to a private sector. So one of the first things I said, let's change this. And I can assure you when I joined, so I said, and Mr. Sachin Agarwal is here, he will vouch for this, that this, I'm not telling stories, these are actual pictures. First thing I was told was, don't meet anyone from industry, because this is defense ministry. Bofors hota hai yahan pe, Rafale hota hai yahan pe, you will be behind bars. And I was also scared. I'd never worked in defense. But after a month, I realized that if, as Secretary of Defense Production that time, if I don't meet the industry, what do I do? My job is to promote defense industry ecosystem, and I don't even know what the industry wants. So I said, the only way I know is to work with the industry. I'll meet all of them and understand what the problems are. And then the problems started to come. But the most important fact here, the point I wanted to make was, we have to start trusting the industry. We have to start trusting the startups. We have to start trusting our academia. And if you trust, if you say, yes, this will work. Today we see the whole explosion of the drone industry. It's not that it wouldn't have happened earlier, but today the important thing is that there is a decision that you have to fly these drones, you have to buy these drones from India. Once you take those decisions, you suddenly see unfolding of so many of people with lot of creativity and enterprise to start creating new products. So if you give trust, people respond back with confidence. And that's something, first thing which I learned, that you have to start trusting your own ecosystem and they will respond. The second thing is regulation. I can assure you, and I can say this with 37 years of experience in government, and I'm not saying this now, I used to say it then, when I was in the government, and I tried, but it's very difficult to change, is that if there is one reason why the innovation ecosystem sometimes has not developed in this country, it is because of the government regulation. And I'm not talking of any individuals here. The system that we have created does not allow creativity and innovation to flourish. Defense people know this very well. You cannot, while I was making a general statement, but in defense that is exemplified all in every small baby step that you have to take. Every baby step requires permission, and you can rest assured those permissions will not be granted. And the only thing that I thought we did was, and we tried to do, was to remove these permissions one by one. We eased the licensing process. No one could make anything because licenses were to be taken and no one was given licenses. A large number of items, licenses were taken. Industry wanted to export. We will not give export permission because defense you cannot export without the government's permission. So if someone applied for government export, it would take 6 months. WhatsApp say the inquiry is over now. Why are you giving me permission after 6 months? We simplified that process. I don't know, I'm sure some of you may have read this. In 3 month time, we saw 800% on a small base, but 800% growth in 3 years in defense exports, 80% of which was led by defense private industry, 80% of it led by defense private industry. You unfetter, you deregulate. I have this fabulous story which a lot of people at IIT Kanpur will relate to, and that is about this ventilator. When I used to be in electronics and promoting electronics industry, there was this company called Scanray in Mysore who came and said, sir, we are making ventilators, but I'm not getting permission to sell it in India. So I said, you have a ventilator? I said, we have a ventilator. We are selling it in 8 countries in the world, but we don't get permission from our drug controller to make those ventilators. I was in electronics industry, I was very naive because IT sector is deregulated, so you don't fully understand what regulation can do to an industry. So I wrote to the health secretary, I followed it up in electronics, nothing happened. Then I had the fortune to meet the Prime Minister in 2015 and I told him about it one-to-one and he said, give me a note. So, and maybe 2016, I forget, sometime around that, before I came to defense, I gave him a note and lo and behold, nothing happened. And that is how the system, rigid the system is. And mind you, this Prime Minister whom has this at his heart. Finally, when did it happen? When the COVID came. And when there was panic all around that if you don't make ventilators, your country will be, like rest of the views, views we were seeing on TV that people were dying on roads and we were not able to make, get ventilators. No one was willing to sell ventilators to us. We had to make our own ventilators. At that time, a danda was put on the drug controller and the regulation was eased and we never felt any shortage of ventilators. IIT Kanpur has this famous startup which did this wonderful work and created a ventilator which also got approved and many other companies got approved, all in matter of why could we not do it for last 20 years? And Scanray has been selling for last 20 years to 8 countries in the world, including Singapore. I mean, they are not only those, less developed countries. So, the kind of regulatory framework we have put across many sectors and for defense is unbearable. I had a running battle with DRDO, as I think that battle is still to be continued because traditionally, since we all had, in defense, one of the biggest challenges is testing and certification. because we had a public sector, 100% public sector oriented system, we had naturally created all the the government had spent money to create all the testing and certification infrastructure in DRDO. DRDO has both the testing and the certification. One industry came to me and said, sir, we have made these aero components which you are importing. We have spent our own money. No one had asked us, but we have developed it. Now, if the Semilac says, I will not test it. I said, why don't you test it? He's not asking you anything. Semilac says, no, sir, we have a policy. Unless DRDO secretary tells me or Air Force tells me, I will not test anything else. I said, then okay, fine, you don't test, someone else can test. No, there is no one else who can test. Only thing that can be put into the system is that tested by Semilac. And interestingly, one of the things which I religiously followed, because I was meeting industries and I knew at some point of time this could come back to me. I said, every time I have a meeting, I will have minutes created so that for posterity there is record of what I said and what was to be done. So what I am telling you each are available on the records of Ministry of Defence. I had at least 3 meetings on this particular issue. Finally, in fact, the then DRDO secretary saw wisdom, and in that case it was given. Policy was never changed though. One-time exception. We got, and today I don't know, see, how do we work, C295 is being made in India now. Airbus said, everything that I'll put in C295, and we are very proud of the fact that C295, one of the world's best transport aircraft, is being made in India. We will, and I think I'm running out of time, but this is a topic which has so much of interesting facets that it takes sometimes take a little bit of time. I will make these C295s in India, provided I don't want any external tests. In France, in Spain, when I make C295, no one tests. I will give you a final aircraft, you can test it and fly it. But every small, in an aircraft, you have about 2 lakh components going in. Every component and different stages of every component, I don't want anyone testing. I will self-certify, I will give you the product, you take it. And you find any shortcoming, I'll take it back, whatever. And we said, right, see, Airbus is a big company. But when it comes to our own, ask HAL, can they ever think of doing it? Or for that matter, even DRDO. Even DRDO has to go to Semilac to get, or go through that DGAQA procedure to get it certified. So, on the testing side, all the testing infrastructure is with DRDO or the services or the defense PSUs or OFB. And so we said, okay, no, we should open it up. And we had a meeting, minister had a meeting, and we took a decision and we issued an order that all defense testing labs will be available to industry from henceforth on payment basis. And we thought it was done. Not at all. Because ultimately order can only be there as a policy, but on the ground, the local lab will say, nahi, mera to abhi khali nahi hai, iska consumables nahi hai, iska jo hai, mera manpower nahi hai, usko shaam ko der tak baithna padta hai, wo to available nahi hai. This is in the normal circumstances, but what if industry is developing something which DRDO itself is making? And therefore, this is one issue on which we tried, but the system becomes such that it's not difficult to change some of these things. But today, one of the things which continues to hamper, so we created this scheme of developing testing infrastructure for the industry. And we said, all right, if we can't open up our own industry, our own testing infrastructure for industry, let's create this scheme. And that scheme, we said 4 in UP and 4 in Tamil Nadu, the 2 industrial corridors. And hopefully we will see some industry participation and coming forward. So these was, so this is one more thing which we thought the way we could do this, Last part of my talk, I want to talk about the startup ecosystem. People said, that startups are okay for IT and digital technologies, but defense is hardcore products which are to be used on the border when army fights. You can't play with that, and startups don't have the capability. It's deep pocket game, long waiting time. How can startups do it? But somehow I had this blind faith, maybe in a way, to say that yes, this is possible. So we formulated the IDEX scheme, in fact within a couple of months of my joining, and in April 2018 Prime Minister launched it. We then asked, it was very important to have the forces to be participating in it, because they were the owners of the technology, the owners of the product that what we bought, and we did get some very motivated officers who were willing to believe in this new concept. All that took a little time. We got people from DRDO, defense PSUs also to participate. First challenge we launched in August 2018, and first products from IDEX started coming in November 2019. In fact, in 3 years, we had 18 products or technologies, new technologies, for which the challenge was given. Based on challenge and responses, the selection of 1 or 2 startups was done. The specifications were, general specifications were given by the forces. These startups, and most of these startups associated either with incubators or with academia, came up with a prototype, came up with the test, completed the test, and now under procurement in 18 months. I don't think, we just heard Tejas test flight was in 2001, induction is 2020. This test flight and design started in 2080 or 1980 or something, 1970 or 1980. In 3 years, 18 technologies. How much money did we give to them? No startup got more than 1.5 crores. That was the maximum ceiling. Not hundreds crores, not thousands of crores, 1.5 crore maximum. How much time did they take? Like I said, between 12 to 18 months, in which they were able to come up with a new technology. And we can all say that startups are producing small things. Yes, they're producing small things. But let me give you an example of these small things. We were creating swarms. The person who was creating the swarms in New Space Technologies, some chap called Samir Joshi, he was, how did we come to know of him? US AFRL came to me and meet me and said, sir, we want to tie up with one of your startups called New Space Technologies, because they are doing something which we don't have in US. I was saying, okay, but I called my people, who is this? None of them knew it. So I said, please call him, I want to meet him. So we called this guy, he's Samir Joshi, he's an ex-Air Force veteran. And he says, sir, I have knocked every single door in Ministry of Defense and Air Force, no one ever entertained me, so I'm doing my work. And US found him out and want to collaborate with him. This is not trivial. I don't think, when was the last when we gave technology to another country in defense? Maybe in British time, 1700 something, when OFB, British OFB was there. QNew, another startup. We gave a IDEX challenge to do quantum key distribution technology over fiber. The best in the world that has been achieved is 90 kilometers in one leap. They came back today, of course they are very successful and very well known, 150 kilometers. Tested, run. They are doing PQC, which is as good as anywhere else in the world in quantum. So these are not companies who are, doing substandard stuff. There is this startup in Delhi. So we gave them a challenge to develop 100 megapixel camera, because we were importing it from Israel. and that camera used to cost us some 10 crores or something. In 1.5 crores, they developed it in 12 months time. In fact, the example which I gave you, the first, they came back and said, so here's your 100 megapixel camera, and said the cost of it, some 20 lakhs or less than 10 lakhs, something like that. I forget, it's in lakhs, in 12 months time. And then they said, so we can do 1 gigapixel camera, you give us another project. 1 gigapixel camera, no one in the world except US has it. Vishal is doing stealth. I don't know, I mean, it's still a long way to, but I meet a lot of these startups who are actually doing amazing work, and I have a number of these stories. The underlying thing is that you have to really believe that they can do it. With Israel, Israel is possibly the most advanced country in the world where defense technologies have been developed for their necessity of their geopolitical situation, etc. I know. But it's all done by startups, 100%. Maybe thereafter they get acquired by American companies who then go and take those technologies across the world and sell them, make money. If Israeli startups can do it, what is the reason that we can't do it? We used to do these phone calls, especially during COVID or VCs, with our counterparts, and they would say, no, we can't do it because your telephone lines will all be leaking, so we can't talk sensitive stuff. So they will come and put an equipment on they'll come to our office from the embassy, and they will put their equipment, which will make a crypto, we will encrypt everything that is being spoken or video that is going, and thereafter, if minister would talk, if I would talk, we would do like that. I said, why couldn't we do it in India? And lo and behold, in 2 years' time, one of our startups has created that product also. Now it's for us to go and start using it across the country. And he vouches. Drones today, everyone, and there's multiple stories about this. Each of drone industry happened because of deregulation. I don't know if you know this, till August of 2021, no one in India could actually design and manufacture drone without government permission, and our government permission was not forthcoming. So except DRDO, no one was doing it. And therefore we had no drones. The only drones we had were the Israeli drones which we had bought from Israel. And some other ideas of buying drones from other places, I don't want to talk about it, were all the pipeline. Because drones were essential. People realized that drones are essential. In 2021, government opened up drones. And look what explosion, We haven't bought any drones after that. And I don't think we'll ever buy drones now for anything that we need, or counter drones for that matter. So, because of this whole ecosystem, but along with that, there have been some other important policy changes. See, one of the important things is the political will. For the first time, there was a political decision that we will not import. See, here, like I said, in the past, even if there was, there is this example of main battle tank Arjun, which was developed by DRDO and ready for at least last 7-8 years. But the feeling was it's too heavy. Too heavy means the army said we want 40 tons, it was 45 tons or 46 tons or something like that, and it's too heavy, so we can't take it. And it's got far more features than T90 and T72, and we're paying hefty royalty to make those T90. T90 a very good product, but MBT is better than that, except that it is 5 tons heavier. I went to Israel as part of defense to defense dialogue, and they showed me around all their stuff they have, and you always very you look at it with a lot of respect. So they showed me a tank, huge beast of a tank. I looked at it and I said, how weighty is this? About 70-75 tons. I said, 75 tons? I thought today your world is moving to lightweight tanks, and US has some 40-50 tons tank, Russia has 30-40 ton tank, you have 70-80 tank. So there's an interesting story they said. They said after Israel was formed, and immediately I think they were attacked from the northern border or southern border. Any of the borders can attack as far as Israel is concerned. So we had no tanks. So we had to quickly do something. So he said we had these big tanker, 20-ton lorries, and their chassis and their bodies. So our army took that, and then they started putting, the artillery gun and the other whatever is required, the computers, and started using that to begin with, because we had no time. We had to do it on, and we used to say literally the developer used to go to the war front to fight in those days. And since then we have been developing this and using it for our purposes. And today that has, of course, that's a very advanced tank with all the modern electronics and controls and awareness systems, etc. But it is still a 70-ton tank. And here we are fighting 40 karna, 45 karna. It took, only 2 years back, we finally took the decision to buy MBT. Now we have started saying all MBT is good and all that. So the point is, this Israeli story tells you they fought with their lorries and put some guns on it and used it as tanks to begin with, some shield, etc., whatever they did temporarily. We said it's very important to learn that to develop the innovation ecosystem, it has to be an incremental spiral development, as they call it. And even if something is being made in India, even if it is slightly less than what you want, you should take it and then give the challenge for the next level. And that is something which is today getting accepted. And hats off to the services, because ultimately, who bears the brunt when they take something which is inferior? It's very easy for us to talk about it, but the brunt has to be borne by the service who's going to use it in the. But two advantages: the surprise element is still there, and second is you have the advantage. The big advantage of using in the indigenous product is the availability of that equipment. The typical availability of most of platforms is 50 to 60%. What does it mean? If I have 100, let's say, helicopters, then 50 of them are available, 50 of them are under repair servicing. Because it takes so much time for me for servicing. Sometimes they have to go to, if it's Russian, it has to go to Russia for the spares to come. So 50% of inventory is idle. But when you have your indigenous ecosystem, availability can be 90-95%. Look at the cost management, the whole inventory management cycle. How does it change? So you start doing incremental development of technology, and that is something which is getting recognized more and more by the services, and that's something highly salutary as far as I think which the services are doing. Not only, once you develop this idea that technology has to be indigenous, it is not only the private industry which can do it. Now in the industry, in the startup ecosystem today, there is a huge effort. Everyone is looking at creating new technology, and there's a huge amount of energy and enthusiasm in system. I will not talk about it, but last point I want to say is, once you create this innovation ecosystem, what changes is the whole mood. And today, whether it is DRDO, whether it is defense PSUs, whether it is OFBs in last 75 years had not registered a single patent. Full stop. Not a single patent. In fact, most of the DPSUs except HAL, which had done something because they were making the helicopters, and DRDO, of course, because they are doing the R&D, and Bell, who are doing some work, limited. No one had filed. But when they saw these startups doing it, then the mood changed. In Mazagon Docks, one of the chap who was making submarines based on the French technology said, "Sir, we'll make a midget submarine." A small group of engineers, 15-20, who, because their learnings are like that. And there is no reason why it can't be done. Let me just digress and tell you about China, and maybe some of you know this. See, we were importing from Russia, China was importing from Russia in 90s, and China was importing more than we were importing. And between 90s and 2010, China reverse engineered everything, and today is among the largest, in fact, possibly even more than Russia, it's exporting defense equipment, which it's made itself. We continue to import from Russia to such a large extent. I mean, that's the way things have evolved. But so this Mesogon Docks, this group said, we'll make this major submarine, and they have said in 2 years they will have the prototype ready. Look at the enthusiasm that is coming. Most of the, Goa shipyard, they created an autonomous patrol vessel which can go around for I don't know how many kilometers and do a whole recce surveillance of a harbor or a port or something without anyone having to do it, totally unmanned. And which is selling, no one has placed order. Bemel has created a product where, if you put it in any of their, dumpers or other big earth moving equipments, if the driver is drowsy and it can cause a major hazard, it will immediately give, based on his blinking pattern, it will give an alert that he is likely to doze off, and the engine stops. People are now started, the PSUs are now started creating technology of their own. Bell has created several technologies. HL, of course, has been part of this and has been creating more technologies. And today, the whole enthusiasm level is totally different. In the last 3 years, defense PSUs who had not filed any this thing have filed more than 2,000 patents. 2,000 patents by the defense PSUs, which was unthinkable. So I think there is a huge change in the ecosystem that we can do. This positive indigenization list is part of that. Basically, it says we will not import, and that is part of the big. The last one statement, and I'll stop, and that is, you see, one of the important things we did was to create a demand side pressure on creating Atmanirbharta was earmarking of defense budget. And there we said, okay, if I have 100 rupees, I am going to, first year we started it in 2021, we said 58 rupees are earmarked for domestic industry. And we also said out of this 58 rupees, 25% of that is about 14.5 rupees will be earmarked for private industry. Next year this 58 was increased to 64, the subsequent to 68, and this year to 75. 75 rupees of my defense budget will go for domestic industry, and 25% of that will be for private industry, and some amount is marked for startups also. This gives you a clear pattern of demand that exists for the domestic industry to actually cater to the defense requirement. And I think today we do see, I mean, when I meet a lot of industry, there is a lot of interest, a lot of new companies, new players are coming, competition is increasing, new value additions are taking place. When we were making this 80,000 crore worth of products in India through the DPSUs, our typical value addition used to vary between 40 to 50%. So that even in this 80,000, 40 to 50,000 crores were actually imported, and that is why we were the largest importers, apart from the products that we were importing. That is now slowly, more and more things are getting made here, new technologies are getting created, and these technologies are getting created through startups, through industry, through academia. It's very important to have an incentive model behind all results. If we do not think of the right incentive model, and then it will be, it will possibly, the drive to achieve the goal will not be so much. And in the startup, I just want to say that in the IDEX model, we very consciously said the full IPR will be with the startup. Although we are giving, first of all, we are only giving 1.5 crores, but even if you give 1.5 crores, we will not have any right on the startup. Only thing is, we will have a margin right in case of national interest. That is, if I find there is something which is of such strategic importance and this can go to the, we don't want it to go out, I will go and buy it on market rate. I will not just take it like that. It is your technology, you have a right to take it forward, but if government needs it for some reason, for some strategic, no such case has come forward. And we have consciously tried not to regulate this growth of innovation system. There have been sometimes questions, and some point of time there may have to be some channelization or framework which will make sure that technologies developed in India are not sold out to other countries so easily, because these are of strategic nature. But till now we have always felt that it is very important. There is always a compromise between how much restriction and how much innovation. And if you put the restriction, you will never have innovation. And one of the important things, I talked about regulation earlier also, because IDEX has grown in an environment of openness, I think that's vital for creating the whole innovation ecosystem. I'm sorry I've taken a lot more time, but thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
Floor is open to questions. You can. Yes, please.
When you talk about the 72 and 90 tank and TOT of that, if you want to change that design, still you have to take the permissions of Russia.
No, so the point is, it's a question of interpretation. Yes, as if you see, the interpretation so far was that anything I do to that design, I'll have to take permission. The question, the right question is that I'm creating a different product, in which case do I still need permission? No. So the question is, how do you frame the solution is very important, because he says this is my product, you can't change it. But if you are creating a different product, you don't need anyone's permission.
Like T90, the ballistic computers are not very sophisticated. If we change it,
I think we'll discuss specific issues more offline on that,
And a quick question, maybe you can answer later also, but just a brief opinion. It's very good that the policy decisions are slightly beginning to change, and some of the things that you mentioned, it's very heartening to hear that. But there's one area where I find, in fact, we all face that challenge as well, is the finance. Even if it is approved, to get it released is a big challenge. And the trust part that you mentioned is very key. Actually, many philosophies around the world emphasize that. But then in finance, it's very tough, I guess, because you're not supposed to trust. That's how they start. So what do you think? And very key.
Yeah, so you see, and you're absolutely right. I mean, this problem of trust is across the board, and finance, there are vested interests as well, which, kind of come in the way, but also there's a genuine problem of trust. So I think this is a cultural change that will happen over a period of time. I mean, and you see, this problem of trust is not specific to the government. You will find this in your own institute. You will find it in the industry also. This is a cultural thing which we have somehow inherited from the British legacy of distrust which the British had for the colonial, menials that those who worked for them. And I think that will slowly go by. Digital technologies help you to a certain extent, because you see things are all kind of, and so digitization to my mind introduces transparency. So you can't fudge too much, can't hide too much. And second is, it also creates a certain amount of more accurate information based on which decisions can be taken faster, but it requires there is a problem, and it needs to be solved.
Thank you for your excellent talk. My question is that you talked about this ecosystem. When it comes to materials, in most of the cases, we still have our dependence on outside. When we procure the material and then develop technology based on that. And perhaps it will require larger intervention in terms of money to develop materials of our own. And the startup that we talked about, maybe more will come forward to develop indigenous materials if the support is little higher, because it requires a lot more to develop material. And what is our take on that?
Yeah, so I think money, first of all, I want to say money is not a problem. There is enough and more money available. In IDEX today, we have about 500 startups, 500 new technologies being produced at different stages. When I left, which is about 6 months back, in 3.5 years, the total expenditure was 64 crores. and total commitment was about 600-700 crores. But some cases, as you rightly said, require more money. In defense, the budget, look at the budget size of defense. It's a question of prioritization. The budget size of defense is 5, and it's increased now. So I'm talking last, when I was defense secretary, it was 5,25,000 crores. This year it's 6 lakh crores, and it's continued to grow. So what are we talking about? You're talking about 10 crores, 15 crores? It's not a question of money. It's a question of mindset. Now, I mean, because you know about Srinivas's case in chemistry department of IIT Kanpur. Srinivas is here? No, he's not here. Professor Srinivas here has developed explosive, which is one of the highest energy yield explosives which is developed anywhere in the country. Our OFB and other labs have been creating the lower level explosives, and they had created it at lab scale. Now they want to create it at industrial scale, and possibly they were having little this thing. Today they are working with Munitions India Limited, which is a derivative of OFB, and those people are now converting. Now this is a change of mindset that is required. Today Munitions India Limited has come forward. I'm not saying every company will come forward like this, but we see lot of eagerness in the private industry also. So one is, today the public sector is changing, the style is changing. Second is the private industry is changing. That is where the big players should come in. And where is the, see, to me, this technology research park and the incubation centers are the nuclei of technology growth in defense and outside defense, because here is where the academia should collaborate with the industry, should be able to talk to the industry. And hopefully, I was reading today, now for the first time we are finding Indian industry has been an arbitrage industry, we all know this. It has been done a great job on servicing, contracting. You give a job, they will do it and make their money. But creation of product not been the hallmark of the industry so far. Except for the first time in defense under IDEX, industry started creating products. And in COVID, of course, we know the great story of COVID vaccines, etc., where we have seen industry do a great job. But today the industry is seeing that if you can create products, the kind of incentives that are there are far in excess of whatever you can do in the service model that they have been following. And so a lot of big companies are today looking at actually developing products. So the point I'm making, is coming back to the short point, is I think we should increasingly look at working with the government, with the industry. And the problem with the government very often is they'll say, I need the end product. And then of course, if you go for research grants and all, I personally feel that working with government is a very unsavory experience. Sorry to say this. Because there are so many rules, regulations, distrust, finance will not give money, someone will put conditions, and you end up actually losing all your motivation to actually do the actual work. But you should look for all opportunities, and whichever best opportunity is there, you could take advantage of that.
My question was very specific here, that we have lab scale, maybe excellent things, and we have some plant scale in defense production also. But what is perhaps we have we don't have is the pilot scale, which requires sometimes 100 crores or 200 crores to have in this metal industry actually, and that is where I think a private or a startup would look for that, some kind of central facility. And if you look at in defense production, for example, Vidhani is a defense production, and then we do not have anything in pilot scale for materials like you talk about rare earths. We will require something to test at a pilot scale, and that facility is not existing actually. And when we go to plant scale, we do few trials and then we fail and then we stop actually. So that is a recurring problem in the case of materials development, that a pilot level facility is required, and that requires significant amount of intermediate intervention, and that is what I would say.
Sure, absolutely. And in such matters, government should step in. There is no question about it, because that is what really the government effort should be, where there is requirement of gap filling. By the way, I just take this opportunity to also talk about something which I hope to do with IIT Kanpur, in IIT Kanpur while I am here, is that I have sent a request to all the professors saying that if you think there are these lab level projects which have future industrial potential and are struggling to actually reach there for want of funds or for some other technical or regulatory clearances, I'd be happy to work with them to see how those could be overcome. There may be no one general answer, but we can always look at specific answers to specific problems. Like Professor Srinivas got an answer. So, mail has gone out from SIIC to all the professors, and I would request through this forum to request the professors to let's fix up a meeting. Let's try to see what can be done. I'll be happy to in any way facilitate that process. Thank you very much.